So great to see so many people here from all over the place. We've got Canada, California, Boulder, Colorado, Seattle. Very cool. Connecticut. New Mexico. So happy to see so many friendly faces. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I wanted to officially welcome you all to the launch party for Difference Making at the Heart of Learning, a new book from Tom Vander and Emily Leibtag. I just got my copy today, so I hope that many of you who pre-ordered, you've already received your copies. I am Ariel Curry. I'm the editor for our school leadership titles at Corwin. And we are just so thrilled to celebrate the launch of this important publication with all of you on Zoom, and we're also live on Facebook. So I want to say hi to everyone who is on Facebook as well. We're going to start with just a couple Zoom keeping tips and points. So first of all, if you have any questions, please submit those in the chat box. We'll be monitoring that, and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the session. This call is being recorded, so if you do not want to be featured on the recording, we just ask that you keep your camera off and that you keep yourself muted. Or you can leave the meeting and go watch it on Facebook. And then last of all, be sure to be watching the chat box because we are going to be giving away a free copy of the book to an attendee every 10 minutes. So check that out. Those will be announced by Morgan Fox. So keep a lookout for her name. So with that, I am pleased to introduce Tom Vander and Emily Leibtag. Tom Vander is the CEO of Getting Smart, where he blogs and hosts a podcast. He is also a regular contributor to Forbes. He served as public school superintendent and as the first executive director of education for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He's written or co-authored more than 50 books and papers, including Getting Smart, Smart Cities, Smart Parents, Better Together, The Power of Place, and of course, Difference Making at the Heart of Learning. And I also just learned that Tom has a great Instagram account where he blogs about food called epic.veg, so you can check that out as well. Emily runs her own education consulting business, working to inspire, empower, and connect educators, students, and families, helping them lead school transformation from the ground up. She was the co-founder of the nonprofit Boundless, and prior to Boundless, she spent the past 4 years as a director of advocacy with Getting Smart, working with educators to leverage their ideas, share their voices, and promote their work around meaningful and innovative teaching and learning. So with that, I am going to hand it over now to Tom and Emily.
Thank you so much. We're glad to be here, and we want to start off by just thanking all of you for joining us. We know that it's an incredibly complex and challenging time, and anytime you take out your day to spend listening to us and being present with other educators, we're appreciative of. So thank you for being here. Tom?
Yeah, I'll just say thanks for joining. There's so many people on the call whose life's work was the source of inspiration for this book. The idea for this book really came from years of visiting schools. Emily and I have had the chance to visit grade schools all over the country and all over the world, and many of you are that inspired this this book are on the call, and so we just start with a word of thanks for the work that you were doing and the challenging work that that you continue to do this year. Thanks.
Yeah, and we really just want to spend a little bit of time going over the book and what's in the book, and then spend some time celebrating all of you, hearing from some educators and some young people who are doing this work every day, and then also just learn from others on the call what you've been up to, because again, what made this book possible was all of the work that you're doing in schools across the country, and continue to do even despite really challenging times. So we want to start with just doing a short reading from the introduction to the book. And we hope that you all, if you have a copy, will join us. We're on page 1 of the introduction. We've entered a new era where life and work are augmented by smart machines and often dictated by the environmental, political, or economic crisis of the week. In a matter of hours, life can be upended by global disasters and worldwide pandemics. Everyone is facing unprecedented novelty and complexity. This ever-changing world and the innovation economy demand a new level of leadership from individuals, more navigating, more empathy, more decisions, and more demonstrated value. For organizations, it means grappling with new problems and organizing quick design sprints around new opportunities in an attempt to try and keep up with the rapidity of change. Communities are facing unrelenting waves of issues we've never encountered. They need leadership that practices empathy at scale, thrives on iterative problem solving, and builds strong support for families facing challenges like dislocation, unemployment, and food insecurity. Communities need leadership that not only calls attention to the inequities across zip codes, but leadership that works to actively dismantle systems that inhibit families from thriving and having a fair chance at a good life. In this perplexing and promising new era, it is contribution that matters. The willingness and ability to step forward and take action to address these challenges, to deliver value, to make a difference. Contribution requires personal leadership, strength of character, and entrepreneurial mindset. It's as much about problem finding as it is about problem solving. Educational institutions in particular have a new job of cultivating difference makers, not test takers. In an era where pedigree matters less than what you have to show in your portfolio, schools have the new priority of helping youth develop a sense of purpose about their place in the world and to support them in their initial contributions. While public policy hasn't caught up to the new reality, communities that hold conversation about what's happening and how to prepare for the new economy quickly come to agreements about new priorities and the kinds of experiences that develop the skills and character to contribute. Those with privilege and resources have particular access and opportunities, and therefore an even bigger obligation to contribute to the common good. The challenge for those with power and privilege is to avoid acting on behalf of historically oppressed communities, but rather to enlist and empower them to act. Difference making is the act of co-creating a better union. Everyone can make a difference. Everyone deserves the right to experience the agency of difference making. Thanks. So that's just an excerpt from the introduction of the book. And now we're just going to share a little bit more about, if you pick yourself up a copy, what you might experience and get to read. Tom was going to share a little bit about this quote and how it's kind of seminal to the book and what we explain, not only in the introduction, but throughout the trajectory of the book.
I think this idea of a hinge in history came most recently from Toby Ord in his new book, Precipice. And the idea there is that we're at a point in time that might be the most important time ever in history, where things could go either way. They could get much better for the 8 billion of us that share the planet, or they could get precipitously worse. So I think that sense of inviting young people into an understanding of how important this period in history is part of this book, but in a little mellow, less melodramatic way. The book's also this sort of common sense discovery that we had in visiting schools represented here on the webinar. For 20 years, I ran around talking about preparation, getting kids ready for college, getting them ready for careers, learning stuff that you might need to know 10 years from now. And the fact is it's a pretty lousy case to make to an 11th or 12th grader or 11 or 12-year-old that you need to learn this because you might need to know it 10 years from now. And And instead, the idea of difference making is to invite kids into doing work that matters to them and their community right now, right here, today. And the wonderful irony is that in and of itself is probably the best form of preparation that we can give young people to help them build that sense of agency, those problem solving skills that they gain while they're making a difference in their community. So it's a different way of thinking about preparation by doing work that really matters to them in their community. And as a result, sort of living into this hinge in history, this important moment in time, inviting them to help make a difference in the complicated world they're about ready to inherit.
And I'll say what happened for us is we were traveling to schools. I don't know, one year, I think it was 100 schools or some crazy number. And people would always ask Emily and Tom, what is it about these schools where young people are thriving? This school is doing PBL, this school is doing design thinking, this school is thinking about SEL. And it wasn't any one of those things. The schools where young people were really thriving were places where they were focused on making a difference, focused on doing something in their community that mattered to them and that pulled out this sense of agency, pulled out what their purpose was, whether it was a local issue or a global issue, and how they got there through PBL, design thinking, more traditional modes of instruction. It didn't matter. It was that the young people every day were focused on making a difference. The way, and Tom and I kind of looked at each other like, oh, that's what's happening here. That's what we're noticing. It's like when, about once a month you go on social media and you see a news story about a kid who helped feed all of the young people in his or her community, and you think, that's amazing. That's what we are seeing in these schools. Kids every day doing extraordinary things for their communities. Why can't every kid have those types of experiences? And why aren't those experiences happening more in school? Why is it something they did after school? So that's what we were seeing. And we started to pick up on this theme that had nothing, it can be attributable to some of the things going on in the school, of course, but the bigger theme that we pulled out was difference making. And actually, I need to give a shout out, Tom, because we have some Kansas City folks on the call. And in these pictures is Dr. Bedell and some students from Kansas City. In the bottom right here is Nason, who made his own mobile barbershop because young people in his community weren't getting access to haircuts and didn't have time to go because they worked after school or couldn't afford a haircut. So he designed a mobile barbershop. And that's his principal there, Luis Hinosa, and some incredible stories of young people making a difference.
Yeah, very cool. Agriculture program, aquaponics program. And this is right in the heart of the city, just east of downtown Kansas City. And as Emily said, the cool thing was that all these schools did it in different ways, but they were connecting with their local community and inviting kids into work that mattered to them and their community. I'll give a shout out to our friend, Nate Mclennan from Teton Science School. Emily and I learned a ton from Nate and visiting Teton Science and all the schools that they have influenced around the country, and this idea of place-based learning and just helping kids connect to place and work that is important to them and their community.
We'll get to hear from him later. So we'll get to hear more about that too. So the book is set up in 3 sections. This also came as kind of an aha to us. We originally had kind of disparate chapters and then realized that there were 3 things that were standing out to us. And those are the following. We are all in this together. Yes, this is aspirational. We know that everybody doesn't feel that way right now. We know that everybody doesn't feel like we're all working together towards common goals, and that everybody doesn't feel that they have a fair chance at an equitable life. This is aspirational, but we believe moving towards this new mutuality, that we're all in this together. If we start to move in that direction, both in schools and civic life and society, that we will all be better off.
Yeah, Emily, I'll do a quick build on that. It seems, I mean, for me, I think 2020 is always going to be the year when we arrived in this new sense of mutuality, right? For the first time in human history, we're facing a global health pandemic. I think many of us have also figured out that we're also facing a global climate crisis, and now we're facing a global economic crisis. And so really for the first time in human history, we are facing shared challenges, and we have a set of shared opportunities. And so for me, 2020 is going to be a year of discovering this sense of mutuality. And we hope that the first part of this book is really a calling to bring that into schools that for 100 years have been created around individuals, about ranking and sorting individuals, and about test scores of individuals, and about who's going to be the valedictorian, and sort of pretending that school is zero sum, which is such a terrible concept. And we hope that this sense of mutuality, of both being in it together, being mutually supportive, and doing work that's important to the community is really part of a new ethic of school.
In the second part of the book, we name how community leaders, pastors, parents, educators, grandmas, aunties, you name it, has a role to play in making a difference. And that there is, no matter how big or how small, a next step that they can take. I know, talking to so many educators over the course of the last 8 months, that things seem insurmountable. And we are all realizing it is going to take ecosystems of support to move us forward and to really wrap our arms around young people and provide them what they need. Every little step matters. Listen to Stacey Abrams. Every vote counts. Every step matters, right? Everything we do. And everyone has a big next step, even if that is doing something for your next door neighbor to help get their kids something they need. All of it matters. So that's what we highlight in part 2. We'll share a little bit more in a minute here. And then part 3, Tom.
I just have to add a quick build on part number 2. I discovered that phrase on the back of a church bulletin about 18 months ago. I remember sitting down and turning it over, and it said in big letters, "Everyone has a big next step." And I just went, yeah, that's exactly it. The spirit of growth mindset, right? Of creating environments of possibility where people feel, as Larry Rosenstock would say, we're about ready to do better work. So we really wanted to capture that essence of everybody has a big next step and can do more than they thought was even possible. The third is that this beautiful sense that Emily and I have discovered in visiting thousands of schools that are focused on difference making are alive with this sense of possibility, of this how might we culture, of not being afraid of walking into really complicated problems that don't have easy answers, and creating this sense of possibility that I bet together we could solve that problem. And so the book really ended up being a summary of 36 great schools, especially high schools, a couple dozen community programs, and some colleges that are alive with that sense.
And you'll notice that on almost every slide, we share examples of schools that are alive with possibility, including New Harmony here, where students work as stewards of the Louisiana watershed and trying to restore the coastal waterways there in order to preserve their city of New Orleans. And Donique Dolly, who's from Big Picture Learning, who worked with this school, I remember in a conversation, I said, well, do all the kids care about the environment? Is that why they go to New Harmony? And he said, no, but they care about something, and they're contributing, and they're adding value, and they're making a difference. We leave so many high school students with 12 years of stuff they don't care about, and then give them a capstone project at the end where they do something that's meaningful. It's the fact that they're working on something that makes a difference, right? The content sometimes is far less important rather than that they're contributing and doing something. And so I thought that was a really interesting takeaway from Donique about that school. We're all in this together. So now we're gonna just give a little bit more of a deep dive into each of the sections quickly before we get into hearing from some amazing educators and young people that we feature in the book. Tom, talk to us about this new mutuality. That was something that really you wanted to make sure we harped on in the book?
Yeah, as I said, it just feels like we should acknowledge this new mutuality that we're facing a set of global crises, and that the book suggests that part of the school curriculum ought to be introducing kids to the world, and both the challenges and opportunities that that exist, and doing so with the spirit of contribution. We tried to acknowledge that this idea of contribution, of giving back, of contributing to the common good is something that exists in every religious tradition, every wisdom tradition, and that we think it can and should be central to the way we organize schools. This comes down to a simple thing, like the way the EL schools organize their advisory system. They call it crew, and crew just means we're in this together, and we're going to help each other make it through today and tomorrow, and make it to graduation. You know, and most schools are this individual rat race, and we love schools that create this sense of mutuality, both of serving each other and being in service to the community. And then finally, by schools alive with the possibility, we want to acknowledge that there's never been a better time to be a young person. It's easy to focus, if you watch the evening news, on all the things going wrong in the world, but the cool opportunity for schools to lean into is that, given the sharing platforms that exist, the commerce platforms that exist, the machine learning tools that exist, young people can join community teams and be part of making a world of difference. And that's super exciting. And we want to invite schools to really grab hold of that sense of possibility and help young people have a sense of agency, that they can help solve climate crisis by making a difference on a watershed problem in their local community.
And I think to just bring home that point, that Tom and I both feel really strong conviction that this isn't just a special service learning project. This isn't just for the lucky few who have extra time to work on a project. This is for everyone. And that it's actually a lot of our youth who are feeling really disconnected or disengaged or feel like school isn't for them. Start there, start with them. They have incredible insights into their communities, incredible insights into what they care about. And every learner, not just certain learners, have extraordinary potential to make a difference. We've seen this at schools like Eagle Rock. I see Dan on the call, at El Centro, a school in Philadelphia, at schools across the country, that every young person should have an opportunity to think about how they want to make a difference. In this picture here, you see elementary students from Cajon Valley USD in Southern California, where they help young people start to identify their purpose and passions at a very early age, who they want to be, what they want to work on, and start there with exploring their unique identities and what they care about. So we encourage this type of work as early as kindergarten, heck, pre-K. So just harping on that point, that it's never too late to start this work, and that everybody has the potential to make a difference. We know that there's lots of questions even that came in before this call about, well, what does that look like? What does that mean? What are the shifts I need to make as a leader in order to prioritize difference making? As an educator, what should I be thinking about? If I'm not thinking about compliance and test taking, what are the things that people in these schools are thinking about and prioritizing? So we thought long and hard about the trends and characteristics we were noticing in the leaders, the educators, and the families that were in these places of learning where difference making was central to the learning experiences.
Emily, we got a question from an early reader about what about community pushback? You know, how could I make this central to my mission if people in my community say, we should just focus on basic skills? Two quick answers to that. One is, if you want to update your mission, you want to update your learning goals, you have to engage the community. You have to have a thick community conversation about how the world has changed and what kids need to know and be able to do. If you facilitate a community dialogue about what's really important, we're confident that your community will come to a place like this outcome framework with an updated sense of goals. And you may express it in a different way than we did, but we've seen this hundreds of times over, where communities that are in dialogue with each other about what's really important today can come to agreement about a new set of skills. And then secondly, you'll see we have some really practical skills on here, leadership skills, personal effectiveness, that's self-management, the ability to create and sustain relationships, that's collaboration, also problem solving. So we have some traditional skills here expressed in a new way, but we think if you commit to a community process that you'll be able to update your outcome framework, and in some fashion that's right for your community, make difference making central to your mission.
And we've seen and included some examples in the book of communities that have done this. So I'm happy to provide some of those links afterwards and sections in the book where we cite and provide examples of communities that have done just that, and not thrown out standards and not thrown out acceleration of learning in core academic areas, but found ways to reprioritize and surface to the top what really matters. I don't know about you, but if you've talked to any educator or worked with a young person who's been on a screen all day, they're begging for a reframe, they're begging for a reset. And so if the conversation isn't going to happen now, right, when is it? Like, we have to be asking ourselves what really matters. And there's got to be a way, and we've seen it time and time again through some of the projects we just shared and others we include in the book, where those young people are hitting academic standards, are doing persuasive writing, are doing all of the things that your state or your district might be asking you to do. So I encourage you to include that in the conversation as well that you have with community members. And heck, community members need our help. They need young people who care about them and care about their thriving ecosystem. We see that in Iowa, in Cedar Rapids, a school that the community basically said, we need a generation of young people to care about Cedar Rapids. And so I'd say partner with those community members, get them on your team, and find ways to co-create those new priorities. Like you see here, Tom and our former colleague, Mary, and some others from the Getting Smart team worked with the El Paso School District to create a new set of priorities to do just that. Anything you want to add, Tom?
Well, this is why we think school visits are also a super important part, a complement to a community conversation, inviting people to visit other schools and develop this new sense of possibility. I also want to give a shout out to Randy Fielding, who helps communities around the world create new learning environments right where they are, so that they can interrogate the future here and now at their schools. So I think all of those can be an important part of a community learning process that helps a community come together around a new agreement that makes difference making central to the mission.
Thanks, Tom. It's wonderful to be here. Congratulations, Emily and Tom both. It's a beautiful book, beautiful ideas about mutuality, about purpose. It's great. We are all in this together, but sometimes I forget that as we're so far apart and don't see each other. So it's really good to see you and good to meet all of you.
I echo those comments, Randy. Been a fan for a long time. So thanks for the shout out, Tom, to Randy. It's great.
Victoria, great to see you.
Hey, Victoria.
And then the third part of the book, and if you can't tell by my smiling face, this is what just makes me so incredibly encouraged and enthused about our future, is knowing that there are so many schools, community organizations, and colleges that are already doing this work and doing this work well. In the book, in the third part, we highlight, I don't even know how many, Tom, we ended up highlighting, but countless examples of K-12 schools, community organizations, and colleges that are doing this work well. And we've had direct experiences with the young people in these places and heard directly from them and their parents and people who worked with them about how impactful it's been for them to feel like they're making a contribution and understanding their purpose, their passion, and their skills. I know we want to give a shout out to Pete at My Machine. Tom.
Yeah, My Machine is such a cool example. This is a great program that started in Belgium that invited elementary school children to imagine a magical machine of their choice. And then they invite college designers and high school prototypers to help that young person actually build that machine. So it's a very cool intergenerational design thinking, engineering maker project. It spread like wildfire across Belgium, and now it's there are chapters all over the world. So we think this is a terrific example of teaching creativity, but with an ethic of difference making. So big shout out to those guys. They were just recognized last week by 100 as a leading example of global creativity. So congrats to them.
And now we want to take the time to acknowledge that this is not about us. It's about you and about the educators on the ground doing the work and believing in what's possible. And give a couple of minutes to some incredible educators and young people to share the difference-making work that they're doing. We're going to hear from Nate, who leads the Teton Science Schools and some of the difference-making projects they're working on near Jackson Hole. By the way, we'll also share all of their handles and information in the chat because you're going to want to learn more and you're going to want to hear more about what they're doing. We're going to hear from Ricky, who is the head of school at Charlotte Lab School and is doing some amazing things in the community, including community-based murals and real-world learning projects with young people. We're going to hear from John from Latitude in Oakland and some of the work that they're doing. I visited and was blown away. We're also going to hear, I'm getting chills, from Reagan, who is a young person from my home state of North Carolina who's worked with MIT on STEM projects. She leads the Student Black Coalition looking at policing in schools and has just done some incredible work as a young person. And we're also going to lastly hear from Mike and Kelly from Future Focus Ed. They are part of a network of schools in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and have some great things to share about the learners and the difference-making projects that they work on. So I'm going to stop sharing. And first we're going to hear from Nate and some of the things that he does with the learners at Teton Science Schools. Nate, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Emily and Tom, and good to see a bunch of familiar faces on the call today. My name is Nate, head of innovation at Teton Science Schools. We're a 53-year-old nonprofit located in Wyoming and Idaho. We focus on place-based education, so connecting learning to communities with an end result of how to help young people make a difference in their communities. So this book that Emily and Tom wrote is near and dear to my heart, and excited to read it and find resonance in it. Also, just as some irony here is that right before this call, I was on a school consulting call with a school that's part of our network that's also partnered with Fielding International and Randy's team. And we were looking at graduate profiles, and top in their graduate profile was purpose. And we were diving deep into how do you link purpose into all the standards so that there is not an exclusion of the graduate profile that has these high and lofty ideals, and then all the standards that students have to cover, they are one and the same. So the standards feed up into the graduate profile. So that's been really exciting work for us. For us as a place-based school or organization, it's about empowering young people to make a difference in the world, which is this idea of difference making, and how do students have agency, community, how do they build community, and how does every student have an opportunity to make a difference? And that's really important to us, and Emily and Tom are right on in that area. And for our organization, we have a learning model that we use in our own organization. We run a graduate program focused on place-based education. We have our own pre-K through 12 school, and we do consulting nationally and internationally. The two things I wanted to focus on today really briefly was our PLACE network. So it's a network of public, higher poverty, rural schools that are adopting the model that we use. And it has a core set of 6 principles, as well as project-based, personalized, competency, et cetera, and what we call character and leadership, which is SEL. Everything that we work with in schools is about how do we build community impact projects so that every student sees potential in the places that they live. How can they all see how to make a difference? And then parallel to that, we run an online portal called PLACE Network Online that runs interdisciplinary projects that have community impact projects that students design and figure out how they want to make a difference in their community, wherever they are. So those are just 2 examples of programs that we're offering that are connected to PLACE, connected to difference making. And one just tangible example is in a small rural town in Western Idaho, one of the schools in our network, the entire middle school curriculum was around building a tiny house to accommodate a housing shortage in their community. So the students had to build it from scratch. They had to do the wiring, they had to get the lumber donated, they had to get the approvals. They finally sold it at the end of the year and are use the money for their next project, which was to rebuild the playground in the town square. So if you think about the stickiness of difference making, we're always trying to make learning sticky, and the stickiness of difference making is really, really high. So the students will not only remember it, but they'll get these iterative cycles of I can make a difference, I can make a difference, I can make a difference. If they don't have to wait till they're adults, they can do this over and over again, starting in early childhood. So super appreciative for everyone's work in this world. And it's all about pushing this agenda of making the world a better place. And thanks to Emily and Tom for getting it on paper. So passing it back to you, Emily.
Thanks, Nate. Really appreciate it. Ricky.
Hey guys, I'm a little behind, so I'm multitasking, which is probably a good point of kind of doing a variety of roles at once right now. So I would say, Charlotte Lab School right now is a K-9 charter school located in Center City of Charlotte. I am specifically one of the founding leadership members, but also have worked a lot in the past few years to develop our kind of campus expansion of one of the only high schools right now left in Center City. So when I think about the work that Tom and Emily have done, I think about the power of Charlotte youth, or for the sake of this call, anyone's youth, right? And like, what is their role in being able to make change? One thing I will say that has always inspired me is often as adults, we underestimate their ability to rise to the occasion and surpass it. So one example right now is we probably have one of the youngest internship programs in the city as of last year. And this year, what I'm proud of is we're actually having youth work with nonprofit organizations beginning in January to help think through how the youth can play a role in helping them to kind of get to a better place. We all know that nonprofits, businesses, and a variety of people have been hit hard due to COVID. And usually our approach has really been youth doing like the 50th thing on someone's list. And I'll give a shout out to CAPS Network for kind of teaching me that phrase of like the 50th thing on the list that never gets done. But I think we are trying to reframe it, because why not use their skill set as a way to uplift nonprofits that may need a little uplifting in a time of need. I think what's exciting is like, these are the same kids that last year, pre-COVID, were able to work with app developers and really educate the city around food deserts. So one specific project they worked on was help to spread awareness around this app that would basically communicate between a family that is in a food desert, that communicates to Uber and Lyft, and then communicates to a restaurant that has leftover bread. So it all kind of provides this like 3-way communication in a confidential manner. And they worked with really getting that information out to communities that were in these food deserts. And that's just one of the examples, I think, of the power of youth. But I want to give a big shout out to everybody on the call. And I think the one thing that I try to preach the most is like, we're only as strong as like each other. So I'm a big fan of connecting via email or social media, and look forward to having more conversations about how we can all rethink, reframe, and pivot during this time. Thank you again.
Ricky, thank you so much. Check out his Instagram for some of the murals he's working to create, not only with his sons, but also youth in Charlotte. Incredible artist as well. And we were talking yesterday, and his inspiration and creativity is instilling passion and purpose in the youth that he works with as head of school at Charlotte Lab.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Lillian and John from Latitude High School in Oakland, California. Are you in the I think you're in the Fruitvale district or near there?
We are in the Fruitvale.
Hey,
John's
Lillian.
going to talk a little bit about folklore. I feel like that might be a really good fit for difference making.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is John Bosselman. I'm the Director of Innovation and Rigor at Latitude High School. You know, when Emily was reading earlier on some passage from the book, so there were 3 themes that really struck me that I think connect to the project that Lillian just spoke to. One of them is empathy at scale. The second is around dismantling of systems. And the third around contribution, and so work that matters. And so we talk a lot to our students about how can we have you work on things now that matter in this moment, and how can we continue to work through addressing the major challenges that really our mankind and humankind are facing right now. And so Folklore actually is a project that started a couple of years ago. Our in-house media company at Latitude is called 378 Media. You can follow us on Instagram. We're not very big on Instagram yet, but we'll get there. The concept of it really started from how can we talk to elders in the community who are going about making change in Oakland? How can we learn from them? How can we capture their stories? And how can we share those stories with a broader audience? That's the concept of Folklore. At the end of the school year, when our students published their perspective pieces, many of which were lifted up on KQED, our local NPR station, as part of Youth Takeover. The themes that emerged from those were our students talking about housing insecurity and really starting to ask questions of how can we make change on housing insecurity in the Bay Area. And so the following year, our 9th graders who moved to 10th grade, similar to some of the speakers earlier, our students decided to work on building tiny homes and donated them to the first homeless youth or group that was leveraging tiny homes as a space for our students. So having them see a sense of purpose in their work and giving back to the community. And then the second year of Folklore, the second season, really focused in on how can we talk to change makers in Oakland that are working on housing issues and share and amplify those stories as well. So, you know, when I think about those things, how do we listen to people? How do we build empathy? How do we think about bringing those stories to others at scale? How do we work on continuously trying to dismantle the systems of oppression that exist? And how can we confront those realities and get them to see a call to action, see a way to contribute to the future of this work? I guess, Lillian, before I'll hand it back to you, the one thing I always like to say, especially to our newer teachers, is that you know, curriculum is a political act. What you choose to put in your curriculum is political. What you leave out is political. And don't let anybody take your political power away from you from what you teach. That's why we don't adopt a curriculum. That's why we build everything. That's why we work with our teachers to teach who we are, because that's the work that will really change the lives of our young people. I don't know, Lillian, more to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would add is that one of our mentors, John and myself, is Rob Reardon, who was one of the co-founders of High Tech High. And he would always say that adolescents have 2 competing impulses. One is an impulse to rebel, and the other is an impulse to contribute. And I think that at Latitude, we're really trying to leverage that impulse to contribute. And I think also now more than ever, our young people really are needing to feel inspired and feel a sense of hopefulness. And so the Folklore Project at its core is really about connecting our students to inspiring change makers in our community, and to see that, you know, there are a lot of these challenges are complex and multifaceted, but we don't have to sit by and just kind of bemoan what's happening in our city. We can actually see and connect our young people with change makers who are approaching these issues with a lot of creativity and adaptability. And I think through those interviews, right, and through capturing those stories and journeys, our students then become inspired to become change makers themselves.
Thank you. Speaking of students who are change makers themselves, Reagan, please share a little bit. I know we won't have time to hear all of it, but a little bit about the things you're working on. Lillian and John, thank you so much. Reagan?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reagan Razon. I'm a senior at Enloe High School in Raleigh, North Carolina. So like Emily said, currently I am an executive at large of the Wake County Black Student Coalition, which is a coalition formed that really aims to end the systemic racism that infiltrates not only our education system, but almost every facet of life. But before joining the Wake County Black Student Coalition, along with 3 other students, I co-authored a petition that aimed to re-examine the role of school resource officers in my county schools. Because as Emily said, as we're reframing education, we also want to reframe what we think about safety and move from the criminalization of student behavior to, fostering the needs of our Black and Brown students in particular. And so currently this petition has over 7,000 signatures, but we're moving past the petition and towards our new proposal that me, my fellow students and other community organizations built, which is the Peace Builders proposal. And we proposed this to our school board. We've met with the school board members. We've met with local police departments to kind of push this proposal. And in addition to fighting for restorative justice in schools, we also, like John was talking about, we also are talking about curriculum and how we want to integrate Black history more into our main curriculum, because at my school, Black history is seen as an elective. It's like, pushed to the side. But, it's important to have that in our main curriculum so that we can, teach empathy to our students. But beside from that, beside my social justice work, I'm also really involved in STEM. So this past summer, I had the opportunity to work with MIT in the online scientific technological engineering community. And with them, I learned about data visualization and science writing. And through the science writing, I had the opportunity to interview a professor in criminology. And I wrote this article about the school to prison pipeline, and I connected it to my mathematical studies, and I've connected it to this idea about probability and the Markov chain. So if you think about if you're at the different aspects on the school to prison pipeline and how that increases your probability of being in contact with the law enforcement. So anyways, also with the MIT program, with the data visualization, I did this project about the epidemic of transgender homicides. And this project, you could have had the opportunity to present about anything, but through all the work that I do, I like to really involve these different intersectional lenses. So with that, I wanted to amplify the voices of the transgender community. I'm gonna keep this short, but in addition to that, I've been dancing for 14 years. And I'm one of the only Black students at my dance studio. So with that, I try to advocate for the voices of my Black and brown ballerinas. I've done different programs like this past summer, me and my friends, we created this virtual online dance series called Everybody Dance, where we taught dance to students on Zoom, because as you know, with COVID, studios have been closing. And we kind of just we just had fun. We did freeze dance and stuff. And it really just taught the students how to really emphasize Black joy and creativity, especially with the climate of the country, especially during the summer. I know with my younger brother, he was really, hurt by seeing, these bodies on our news screens, seeing this death everywhere. So, I found this importance to really not only push for engagement in the arts, but also push for this, supporting of, the positive sides of Blackness, And then also with that, I teach dance at homeless shelters in Durham and Raleigh, because I have the opportunity of dancing at a studio, but many other students don't have this opportunity. So, it's important to me to share this love and share this, just share, because as we're talking about change making and all this, that's something that I like to embody in my work, whether it's dance, STEM, social justice. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, but yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for having me here.
No, thank you for joining us. And I think one thing that you just captured from me that I wanted to mention is that it's also about what you care about, right? It's about what Reagan cares about and letting her lead with her purpose, her passion, and how she wants to make a difference, because I can never tell you that, right? You working to help dismantle some of those systems and to present different visuals and image of beautiful Black bodies is so important. And that if that's the work you want to do in the world, we should create spaces for you to do that. So thank you so much for joining, and keep up the good work. And then last but not least, before we get to questions, we have Mike May and Kelly from Future Focus Ed in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Thanks so much, Emily. My name is Mike May, and we at Future Focus helped incubate 4 industry-focused schools that utilize project-based learning. That work started about 10 years ago, and 4 years ago, using those schools as the platforms in the areas of healthcare, tech, business and entrepreneurship, and then construction and design, we launched a paid internship program. And so that's the work that I lead. And we've now, at the moment, we have 110 students participating in this program. And we've shifted and pivoted kind of pretty drastically to retain those students in virtual paid internships. So we had about 60-some students on the ground when COVID hit in the spring. And we just worked really hard with about 60 different employer partners to be able to offer even more opportunities for young people. So we're serving students who really are off track to graduation or would kind of be classified as opportunity youth. And we're trying to build on-roads into career areas for them in support of the work that the schools are doing. And it's really been a great experience. And we're now building out a graduate, kind of an alumni program, if you will, to continue to support those young people as they move out of high school and into their next phase of work, training, and education. So it's been really exciting, and virtual has opened a lot of doors for us. So we still have some students on the ground. We have some hybrid, but as I said, we have a lot in virtual settings. And Carrie Contreras is with me today because she's an intern who has experienced not only the face-to-face standard X3 internship that we typically do, but she's also now living in that virtual placement as well and graduated from Health Leadership High School and is stepping out into her next phase of growth and kind of finding herself in her community. So Kelly, if you could just share briefly kind of what your journey has been and maybe highlight some of the paid internships that you've had and what your reality is like now, that'd be awesome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Contreras. I'm 19, and this is my 5th internship with Future Focus. And so the 2 first ones were with the city of Albuquerque. And then my last 3 were with something with the medical field. So eventually, in the beginning of this year, me and my sister also did an internship at the hospital of UNM. And at the time, that's when the pandemic started little by little, and then it hit hard. So we got laid off then. And it was a really good internship. I was as a PCT. I was working as a PCT, and you know, recently they reached out. Like,
Kelly, you got to translate. What is PCT? What does that mean?
Sorry. So patient care technician. So we get to check in on patients, take their vitals, and do their basic their basic patient orientation kind of. So anyways, so I did that. And then they reached out recently and told me about another internship with UNM with the Prevention Research Center. And so far I've been doing it virtual. I mean, it's completely different from what I used to be doing, like on face-to-face, and now it's virtual. So it's kind of hard. These meetings sometimes are like almost 4 hours long, and they only give us like 5 minutes of a break. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is so tiring. But you know, I pushed through it, and it's a big change, but it's awesome. I love the internship. So yeah.
And Kelly, you're focusing, it's a community health focus, right? About nutrition and activity for youth to try to prevent diabetes and other just community health type diseases that might afflict a locale.
Yeah, so with UNM, the Prevention Resource Center, so they're working on a project called Eat Smart, Play Hard. And we introduce children or little kids between 3rd grade to 5th grade and kind of make eating healthy fun in a way. So we do a mini passport, and throughout the weeks, they go home and do like a little recipe that's in the book, and their parents sign it off, and they come back and they get a sticker. And by the time the 6 weeks are done, they get prizes. And I mean, they make it fun for little kids. And even the point, they even went to our high school, and it was fun just even having to teach the high school, the elementary students about it. So
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Emily,
Thank
Tom,
you.
thanks again for all your work.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. And I know that we don't have a ton of time. Oh, there's my grandfather, a true difference maker too. Look at him, cigar in hand and firecracker in the other. As you just saw, that's just a sample of some of the incredible young people and educators that we've talked to. We encourage you to pick up the phone, talk to them, and find other difference makers and take on difference making yourself. We just want to wrap with a couple of ways that really quickly you can take action and get started, and then open it up for questions and celebrate. This has been a really, really fun night. Just quickly, in the book, we include 25 most important issues of our time. This list, I only have some of them here, but we identified a bunch of big global challenges that we all need to be working towards and think that we could center learning around, and that we need to now, that the time is now to make those shifts to working on these challenges. And then also just some folks in chat have asked, how do you actually get started doing this? Tom alluded to or mentioned directly that have a conversation with your community and ask people what they care about, right? Ask people what it is that they're worried about for their families and their neighbors, or what they care about on a global scale. Use the list we included and get going. Try a project, right? Before December, whether you're remote, hybrid, in person, I give you permission to ditch a lesson next week and try a difference-making project. Don't say you heard it from me, but ditch a lesson and just try a difference-making project and take advantage of this time where people really need to feel more engaged. Anything you'd add there, Tom?
Now, the global goals, UN Sustainable Development Goals are a great place to start, globalgoals.org. We added a handful to those, but we think every high school kid deserves the opportunity to be introduced to the world they're going to inherit, and we think this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and Boston Evening, as you see here, is an example of a school where learners have basically been kicked out of 3-4 schools, and this is what people are considering their last chance. And they do incredible projects, including resulting in some of the work like you see here on the screen below, where they're actively doing things to fight racism in their communities, work with nonprofits, you name it, they're working to make a difference. Incredible school. So let's talk questions. How are you making a difference? We want to hear from you, from those we haven't heard in the audience.
We do. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Well, let me just really quickly address Randy's question on mastery and purpose. I thought that was a super interesting question, Randy. What I want to be clear here that Emily and I are not suggesting just an interest-based learning, that high school is a complete free-for-all where kids are just doing stuff they care about. There is an obligation to help young people develop knowledge and skills that will equip them for life. And so this is really the art of introducing young people to what high quality work looks like. At the beginning, I talked about EL education, and I think they're a great national example of introducing young people to quality work. They have Models of Excellence website that introduces young people to what quality projects look like. This is what competencies are for. And so the new art, we think, of meeting around a mission of difference making is to identify projects that are of interest to young people in the community, and to show young people what high quality work looks like, and scaffold and guide them to doing that kind of work. So we think that's the new mission of combining mastery and purpose around difference-making projects. So great question, Randy. And I think that's the new work.
Thank you, Tom. Great answer. And John, I think you were getting at some of that with a focus on internships. I know when people come to work with us, it usually takes about 18 months before they start to be able to really do what they wanted to do. And it's that working together, and we're learning from them, those younger people, and they're learning from our team, and they're working with kids, they're working with educational leaders, they're working with other people who may have been working on projects like that for somewhere between 5 and 40 years. And but gathering around that common mission and purpose is what makes it all go.
We heard from a network of schools that prioritize work-based learning. I think internships and work-based learning are another way that young people begin to understand what professional quality looks like, what they can see themselves in the role of other people doing high quality work. And so those examples that we just heard from Health High and ACE High are I think also great examples of how we can combine work-based learning and community-connected project-based learning to make high school super valuable. So, thanks, Randy. Yeah, I think Maggie's point about how do we make this central. Maggie, we do see schools all over the world doing a little bit of difference making around the edges, but I think you're right. The new challenge is how can we make this central to the culture, the experience, and the environment.
So if there are any last questions, we could chat about that now. We also have some that were submitted, some other ones that were submitted via the chat. And what we can do is, Emily and Tom, I can send those to you, and then we will publish your responses on Corwin Connect. So that is corwin-connect.com. If any of you have not seen that, that is our blog. But so responses will be there, and you can sign up for our newsletter to be notified when that blog post goes out. But yeah, I think we will wrap it up. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Tom and Emily, any final words you wanted to say?
I want to say thanks to everybody that joined us tonight. As I said at the outset, so many of you have been an inspiration for this work, in this work. So thanks for the work that you're doing, and let us know how we can highlight what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll just close by saying, I think we all need to give ourselves some grace and get back to what's important, and think back to what experiences in our K-12 schooling really mattered. And I think if you think back to the ones that were the most powerful, they all included some form of difference making and doing something meaningful in your community. So let's offer that to the young people that we're working with. We know it's painful to keep them in screens and do things that isn't, even though it's a necessary evil right now, to do things that aren't meaningful. But if you can, call me, call Tom, and we'll help you brainstorm a way to help young people start to make a difference. As you saw on the call today, young people are incredible, right? Like you can't have a Reagan sitting in your class and not give her the opportunity to do something she cares about. So that's what I would say. Give yourself some grace and just think about what you would really want for your children and for yourself sitting in classrooms today. Imagine if every young person was trying to make a difference. Yeah, I won't cry.
I want to say like, amen.
I won't cry.
That's a beautiful note to end on.
And I'm gonna, I'll put up on my screen right now just our contact information. We really would love to connect. As you see, we really listen and pay attention to what y'all are doing in your classrooms and love featuring your work. So please reach out, connect with us, and share the ways that you're working to make a difference in your personal life or in your professional life with young people. But thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Emily and Tom, and thank you so much everyone for coming. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we will be sending out the recording as well, so be on the lookout for that.
And thanks to your team too. We didn't give a
Ariel.
shout out to Corwin.
Thank you guys. All right, take care everyone.